أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Verily, our praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek His aid. We ask for His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of our own selves and from the evils of our own actions. And whomsoever Allah guides, none can misguide. And whomsoever Allah leaves astray, none can guide back to the correct path. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We testify there is no deity worthy of our worship except for Allah, who is alone with no partnership, that never has and never will be another. And we bear witness that Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, is the last and the final prophet of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers and sisters, friends and family, everybody tuning into the live stream and everybody joining us on the Zoom meeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you for joining us again for the Sunday discussion and Sunday halaqah, where we will be continuing of the reading of the book, Those Promised Paradise by Noura Durkee. Today we're on page 162. We'll be going through Khadijah bint Al-Khuwailid. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Bismillah. Where it mentions that the Prophet ﷺ is quoted in saying in Sahih Muslim as well as Sahih Bukhari that the best of the world's women for her time is Maryam, and the best of the world's women for her time is Khadijah. So Jibril alayhi salam once came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "O Allah's Messenger, Khadijah is coming to you with a bowl of soup. When she reaches you, greet her on behalf of her Lord and myself, and give her the glad tidings that she has a house of pearls in paradise, where there will be no noise nor any fatigue." And the name given to each of the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu is Mother of the Faithful. Khadijah, radiallahu anhu, was the mother of all of the mothers of the faithful, and all accounts speak of her generosity, her beauty, her tolerance, her kindness, her patience, and her understanding. And she is regarded as a perfect mother who bore Rasulullah's 6 children, and she is also remembered as a wealthy businesswoman who conducted her own affairs wisely and successfully during a time when most women were oppressed or enslaved. And a hadith of Jibril alayhi salam celebrates her life and tells of her diligence, her discipline, and how it was rewarded. So Khadijah, radiallahu anhu, radiallahu anha, was the very first Muslim after Rasulullah sallallahu himself, and she supported him and all of the new believers with her body, her heart, and her soul throughout the early and the most difficult years of Islam in Arabia. And Mecca during the days of Khadijah's youth was like a frontier town. Light came from oil lamps, but since they were expensive, most people lived by the natural light, the rising at dawn and going to bed soon after sunset. So Khadijah came from a wealthy family and always had servants around her, and the servants of that time were slaves from many places from around the world. And during those years, a slave trade was a very big business from across the Red Sea in Africa, from one of the Arab tribes from Europe, or from the Roman or the Persian empires. So business and trade were also a very important aspect and part of the Meccan economy. And Khadijah's family was engaged in trade, and she grew into an atmosphere of wealth and to power. And she learned a lot about business by watching and listening. And while she was quite young, she married to one of the noblemen of the Quraysh and had several children. And when he died, she married another man, only to be widowed yet again when he passed away. And her husbands, and family had left her with a great deal of money, enabling her to continue her business, and she did not go on the caravans herself. However, instead, she would hire somebody to go and do the trading for her. And her treasurer, Maysara, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, helped her with accounts and the hiring, and dealt directly with camel drivers and traders. So at the age of about 40, Khadijah was living alone with a successful business when she heard about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she was impressed by the stories of his honesty and heard that the people called him Al-Amin, being translated to being the honest. And she knew He was a trader on the caravans, and he was very honorable, and she decided to hire him. And Muhammad Sallallahu was nearly 25 years old when he came to work for Khadijah, radiallahu anha, and he had been living with his uncle Abu Talib for many years, ever since the death of his grandfather Abd al-Muttalib when Muhammad Sallallahu was only 9 years old. So his father had died before he was born, and his mother died when he was only 6. And when the time came for the next journey north to Syria, Muhammad SAW went as the representative of Khadijah, and she sent Maysara alongside to help him as well. And the caravan left for Syria and was gone for a long time. And during the long absence, Khadijah, like all other traders, prayed and waited expectantly. And one day she heard noises in the courtyard. Maysara had ridden ahead of the caravan to announce its arrival, and he was dusty and hot, but very happy. And he talked endlessly in the praise of the new trader, commending Muhammad SAW for his honesty and good business sense. And the caravan made a lot of money everywhere where it went, but also much more than expected. And Maysara was also very impressed by Muhammad Sallallahu character, by his thoughtfulness, his intelligence, and his kindness. And there was something about this man that Maysara could not describe, some sort of quality of goodness, of radiance, or politeness, and he was unable to stop talking about him. So Khadijah listened to Maysara very carefully and with great interest, and when Muhammad Sallallahu had arrived and settled the camels and brought in all of the belongings, he came to make his report. And as he spoke, Khadijah was deeply moved. And shortly afterwards, a lady friend of Khadijah's, who also knew Muhammad Sallallahu came to see him, and she asked, "Why don't you marry?" And he replied, "I have no money." And she said, "Would you marry someone who has compassion, good reputation, beauty, riches, and who also wants to marry you?" And Muhammad SAW responds, inquired curiously, "And who would that be?" To that retort was Khadijah. And Muhammad SAW was very happy and willing. So Khadijah went to her uncle, her closest male relative, and Muhammad SAW went to his uncle, and both consented, and the wedding soon then took place. So Muhammad SAW then moved into Khadijah's big home, an enormous change for him because he had been an orphan since he was very young. And although he had many friends and companions, he had never been so close to anyone as he was to her. And she became his best friend, the one who understood him best in all of the world, and the one he could talk to about everything. And it was also a relief for him not to worry excessively about money. Now, although he continued to work, he was able to take time whenever he needed. He could retreat to the mountains to pray and to meditate, and he needed this time as an escape from his troubled society. And he knew that there was only one God who should be worshipped, and that there must be a better way to worship and to live than the ways that he saw in Mecca at that time. And for 15 years, Khadijah and Muhammad Sallallahu shared a rich and beautiful family life and a wonderful marriage, and they were respected by the Quraysh for their nobility, and they were loved by the poor for their generosity and their companionship. And during their marriage, they had 6 children: Zainab, Kulthum, Ruqiyya, Fatima, Al-Qasim, and Abd Allah. Sadly, both sons died while they were very young. And 3 others lived with the family: Ali, Zaid, and Baraka. Ali was the son of Abu Talib and Muhammad's cousin, and Muhammad SAW offered to help his poor uncle by taking care of Ali. Zayd was one from the Arab tribe in the north. He had been captured by another tribe and sold as a slave, and Khadijah's uncle gave Zayd to her, and she in turn gave Zayd to Muhammad on their wedding day. And Muhammad SAW later freed him and treated him as a son, and Barakah had also been a servant first of Muhammad's father, then of his mother, and then of his own. And she had been with him all throughout his childhood and youth. And when he married, she was freed and soon married. But before long, she returned with a son, Usama, to live with Muhammad and Khadijah. And it was certainly a big household full of people and activity. So Khadijah was close to Muhammad sallallahu as one person can be to another. When the first revelation descended to him on Mount Hira, she was the first person to know about it. He was shaken and terrified, of course, by the experience, and he didn't know whether he was going crazy or if an angel had really spoke to him. She listened to him attentively and believed him. And she reassured him that he was not crazy at all and sat with him until he fell asleep. Then she put on her coat and went out, going straight to her cousin Waraka, a Christian and the most religious and pure person which she knew. And after then, she told him about what happened. He became very excited, stating in the quotation here, "Holy, holy, I swear by Allah, if what you say is true, O Khadijah, he has received the greatest namus, angel, and one who came to Moses and Jesus. Muhammad is certainly the prophet of this nation, so encourage him to be strong and determined." And Khadijah returned home to tell her husband of the good news, and Muhammad ﷺ then spoke to Waraka himself. And Waraka had studied the lives of the earlier prophets and knew his subject well. And he told Muhammad ﷺ, "You are the prophet of this nation. They will say you are a liar, and you will be attacked and tormented. They will drive you out of your home. And if I live to see you win, I will support Allah's word in you." And Rasulullah ﷺ asked him, "Will they really throw me out?" To his response was, "Yes, they will. No man who brought a message like yours was ever free of persecutions." What he replied with. And soon after, life had changed dramatically, and the message was not public. It was passed secretly from believer to believer. Muhammad ﷺ taught Khadijah radiallahu anha how to pray, and they made salah together. Abu Bakr, a close friend of Rasulullah ﷺ, became a Muslim and brought many others to Islam. And in the beginning, the new Muslims did not tell people who might not understand, but after 3 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded his Prophet ﷺ to tell his extended family, his uncles, his other relatives, and the people of the Quraysh about Islam. So he obeyed, but most of them did not want to listen to him. Ali radiallahu anhu was the only member of his extended family who promised to support him, and Ali was then just a young boy. Khadijah had then, from that time onward, continued to support everyone in the household, even though there were terrible things that were happening to the family, for they were being beaten in the street, they were teased, they were being insulted and shunned. Old friends and family members refused to speak to them. People that they had loved and trusted turned against them. Vendors would not even sell things to them in the market, and Muhammad had to go out every day, sallallahu and face the troubles because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered him to tell the people. And Khadijah stayed at home and kept the place of security and comfort for him while terrible things were happening from the outside world. Wonderful things were happening within the family. And the Quran continued to come, and the new believers kept making shahada, and the message from Allah Azza wa Jal strengthened them and helped them understand this world and the world to come. So they spent all of their money on the poor Muslims who were suffering terribly, and they saw their daughter Ruqayya leave for Abyssinia with her new husband Uthman to escape the persecution. Finally, the family was forced to leave their house and were confined to a deserted, dry, hot valley on the edge of Mecca. They nearly starved, and there was hardly any water, and the heat was intense, yet they continued loving and supporting one another, following the orders of Allah Azza wa Jal. And at last, after several years, the Quraysh let them come home again. And Khadijah was over 60 years old by the time that they returned to Mecca, and the 3 years in the desolate valley had weakened her health, and she had given most of her food and water to others at the cost of her own health. Her heart was full, but her strength was gone, and after spending 3 days in bed with Rasulullah ﷺ at her side, she had then died and passed away. And they had lived together in profound harmony for 25 years, and she had been not only his wife, but also his intimate friend, his wise counsel, and mother to the entire household. Rasulullah ﷺ referred to the year of her death as the year of sorrow. And at the cost of tremendous pain and struggle, Islam had finally been established. The message that Khadijah and had supported and had spread past the angry Quraysh to Africa, to Medina, and beyond. She was also an essential part of its foundation, and every Muslim owes her gratitude and love. And much of what is known about Khadijah, radiallahu anhu, radiallahu anha, came from Aisha, uh, a beloved wife of Rasulullah, because Rasulullah never forgot Khadijah and was continually touched by anything or anyone who reminded him of her. And Aisha, radiallahu anha, asked him why he talked as if Khadijah was the only woman in the world. And he said, she was and remains so. It was she who gave me children. Aisha once remarked, I was never jealous of any of Rasulullah's wives the way I was of Khadijah because he always talked of her. So Rasulullah continued to send meat and presents when he had them to Khadijah's friends and relatives throughout his lives. When asked why, he said, I love those whom she loved. And Aisha, radiallahu anha, recounted that once he was in her house, a voice came from behind the door. Rasulullah reacted to the voice as if it was Khadijah's, and then he realized it was only Hala, Khadijah's sister, who sounded just like her, and Aisha could not help but feel jealous and angry at this response. Why do you keep mentioning her so much? Has Allah not given you better than that? She cried. With Rasulullah responded, startled by her words and replying that she believed in me when no one else did. She embraced Islam when people disbelieved me, and she helped and comforted me in her person and wealth when there was no one else to lend me a helping hand. I had children from her only. And Khadijah remained an important figure for the remainder of Rasulullah's life, and her life became an example for generations of Muslims to come. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower his peace and his blessings on them both. And with that, we come to the ending of today's reading. And Jazakallah for tuning in. And we'll continue in the following week with Saad ibn Abi Waqqas. اللهم سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.